All right. Well, this is see if I can get a better angle, better view on that. Expound it a little bit. Okay. Well, since there is nobody tuning in, I'm gonna try to get rid of some of the stink that I'm spreading out on this couch because I am training like a mofo. We're just jumping right on. Yeah, we're going to be going through. So this is live right now. Hello. Hello. Hello on live TV. Yeah, there it is. Little lull, right? There's about 2-3 seconds. I caught you. Okay. Let us do a review. Yeah, now it's all caught up. Let's do a review on this channel here, and mainly the posts, because I want to draw attention first to this one. This woman, believe it or not, yeah, that's a woman. She likes to be called doctor, but Dr. John Campbell, he is solid. We're going to play a little bit of this.
This morning, a video showing a supposed mathematical loophole in the lottery exploded online.
Well, a warm welcome to this talk. Now, today we're going to be looking at a study, or the history of a study, if you like, from Queensland in Australia. It's called the QVAX, QO-VAX study. And this enrolled 10,600 people, and it started in July 2021. And it included all their clinical data from the superb data available in Queensland. It included biosamples, blood and urine samples. The study started recruiting in July 2021. It recruited.
I did forget that I've got my headset on, so you're probably not able to pick up on any of that. But Dr. John Campbell, he's doing these deep dives. Let me open this, get this window over here. He's doing these deep dives. And going to areas that many people are afraid to go into, where he's extracting these white clots from a lot of these funerary homes. It's a very scary thing what's happening here, but this woman here on this particular episode that he just came out with, let's see, it is a Amy, so it's biosamples are being destroyed that are the evidence, right? So this is Dr. Wendy Hoy. I believe she's Australian, and she is and I did a deep dive into this. So this is information that I've added to the information that goes along with this video, where I do a little deep dive. So let's read a little bit about this, right? And then we'll move on to the next subject, because this is quite a tapestry I have for you today, and some huge recommendations on what you might want to watch. So revisiting the QO-VAX study, a way forward through transparency and scientific integrity, with Professor of Medicine Dr. Wendy Hoy, and the now aborted QVAX or QO-VAX study. We are offered a moment to reflect, one that might illuminate a path forward through informed dialogue and ethical science. The QVAX program was established with the clear intent to rigorously study the long-term effects and potential benefits of COVID-19 vaccines in a real-world setting. The prospective longitudinal study was to follow a representative cohort of adults across Queensland, a state comprising nearly 20% of Australia's population and covering an area more than 7 times the size of the United States. And Dr. John Campbell, if you look back at his channel, he didn't mean to step into this. The evidence is everywhere, and the most profound, in my opinion, of the information that he comes out with has to do with. Let's go over to his channel
Okay,
here,
Arthur Ingleworthing.
because I'd like you to be able to see
You're very
his
welcome
posts.
to.
We're going to go down here. Here he's focusing. This is who he is and what he is. He lays out for nurse practitioners. He is a doctor that teaches information about physiology. He has videos spanning way back, laying out cardiac, respiratory systems. I mean, he's still working. He's still doing it, right? Here he's laying out the renal pathways and so forth. Very informative information, but it coincides with kind of what's going to keep you alive is keeping your liver, your kidneys, your adrenals, right? He focuses on the physiological pathways to best do that. But much of what he's been posting has centered around the rhetoric, and it's becoming global now that he has seen these white blood clots that are being pulled out. You can see the advocacy, teaching in Kenya a few years back. He's global. He's all around the world doing this. Look at this. Who do you trust the most? Yeah, John Campbell for president, man. For world president, global president. But he's looking at these strange white substance that's probably has to do with Internet of Bodies, right? And we can look that up, right? We're gonna look it up. So it goes under capital I, lowercase b, Internet of Bodies. The Internet of Bodies ties into every subject that you can imagine. Everything and anything is attached into this. Did you know, for instance, that the average person has in their brain a plastic spoonsful worth of plastic? Yeah, you heard it here. You can look it up. In fact, don't take my word for it. Let's look at that. Look this up. Okay, the average person. This is my first qualifying statement of this particular round, right? So look back. The average person has a, let's say, plastic. We're talking about microplastics. And this is where you can cite this research or get this study. Okay? Yeah, it wanted to throw me off. Not interested, but I am interested, but I want to do that later. A new study indicates that the average human brain contains about the same amount of microplastics as a plastic spoon, roughly 7 grams or 48,000 micrograms per gram. That's quite significant. So when you tie this in with what I was just pointing out with the strange globular substance that almost looks like a squid that is being pulled out by these funerary homes that are doing embalming. And he even had somebody who wrote a book on embalming and started to discover this. And pushing the point is he did, at this convention, he did this general consensus and had everybody raise their hands to go, how many of you are still doing the embalming? About a third of them dropped out and put their hands down. 2/3 that raised their hands. He asked them, how many of you have found this white globular substance in these studies? And it became like this huge number of people that kept their hands raised up. So it's a very scary thing, and that was like a global issue right there, And in the future, is it going to be looked at as part as the pandemic? Right? Is it going to be looked at like a moment out of time? So we're going to go back to the channel here. We don't even need to do that, do we? So this is the Internet of Bodies, and this is how certain areas of your body are being partitioned and blocked off. And then this leads me directly into something else that I'd like people to watch, which is going back up here, going back to home, and to see the having a tough time navigating today, but this I posted just before, which is Kevin A. that was on Sean Atwood, Attwood, Atwood's channel. This is fascinating. I highly recommend, but this gentleman has written like 20 different books. He does specific studies around the Ninth Circle, the Vatican. If you are familiar with this,
Mom, how's the little flight?
Great. The only way to go.
yeah, if you are familiar with this,
From the farm,
check it out.
Gotta take.
Hello, good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world, and I'm delighted to have.
So just to point out, this is
I've been on the road for
Kevin
basically,
A. and that, but he has his own
Saturday night
YouTube channel,
series.
and this is
Everyone
Sean
that's
Atwood, and
tuning
they
in,
are
we really
discussing
appreciate
these
the community we've built.
these victims of MK Ultra and how the programs span over time. If you want to look much deeper into this, we'll look up, I think it's under Operation GCD. Yeah, this one right here. So he'll point you to the Process Church, Operation Gladio. He gets really deep into these programmed killers, right? And then he also works very closely, right, with the what was it? The underclass podcast. The Underclass podcast is a really good place to go for that next. And he's pointing out, gets very specific into Operation Gladio, the Process Church, these programmed killers. I just wanted to do something on this just to show you what it looks like, show you the links, try to lead you to some form of release. I mean, he does these deep dives into David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, right? I mean, there's some really amazing documentaries here that haven't gotten their due. I mean, you'd think this guy's channel would be taking off, but there's like a suppression taking place. Like, you know, that's pretty good for this type of programming, but still, right? Still, I mean, come on, with all these high quality podcasts going back, this one's going back 11 months, you know, still only 50,000 views. I mean, this is Picard. This is him right here. Some very high quality podcasts. He's getting the information out there. He approaches things like a very empirical, pragmatically based journalist. So I highly recommend that channel. We're going to go back onto my other channel here, which is what I'm doing a live on. And this is under the MK Ultra, right? So, that's where to find that. We went over John Campbell, the significance of watching John Campbell, what you'll get out of it. The main premise, the scope of practice is to let you know and be informative, give you information that's based around a lot of, he doesn't talk directly into the wind, but he's talking about COVID. He's talking about all the ramifications from COVID. And, you know, I think he knows the bubble might burst or pop based on the global agenda. So he treads lightly around the subject, but it's scary what's going on here. And then we discussed Kevin A. And, this guy is very informed in the areas that he's informed in. But when you look into it, and even on here live, he was asked about Neuralink. He doesn't know what Neuralink is. He was asked like specific names of people that are really pervading out there when he talks about the ninth circle, he's not aware of a lot of the other things. So he's very specialized. In other words, it's not to put him down. He's very specialized, and he acts more as a historian, right? But that's actually refreshing to me because it says this person's not drifting around too much and they're not speculative, right? And he really is looking into this. And when he was asked, even though he's one of the premier primary people talking about the ninth circle, he knows of its existence. He was asked point blank on this interview with Sean Atwood whether or not why he hasn't written a book exclusively and specifically about the ninth circle. And he said, well, I can't come out with witnesses. And what witnesses there are, if I quote them, I'm basically signing their death warrant. Like it's going to be obvious who I'm talking about, right? Because they keep it few and far between of who's going to be living and who is privy to this information. So, I mean, you would think, even with the seeming transparency in the social media, the way that it is now, that no secrets would, go on for long, that no stone lies unturned, right? Think again. Okay, so this is Chris Langan. If you really wanted to look into him, I would say go on Theories of Everything and watch his interviews with Kurt Mungle and some other people, and then some Bernardo Kastrup. I think he does some debates with him and some other people that are really, they're I'm not saying they have high IQs, but they're doing high IQ thought. And I think that, somebody having a high IQ versus them going into the discourse of trying to study, trying to focus on certain principles, oftentimes that's left out, that's disregarded, right? And then I wanted to cover this, the link of orthomolecular.org, because up here with this MK Ultra, really, he's interviewed Kevin so many times. Sean Atwood has interviewed Kevin A so many times, and he's just getting into questions that are regarding, how do we break free? How do we combat this? And I'm telling you that if you keep your iron levels up, then initially, like beef liver is the best way to bring your Heme iron levels up, along with high dose vitamin C. And this leads into aromatic amino acids. This is a real connection to what I've discussed on my channel over and over and over again, and that is the orthomolecular connection. And so this is orthomolecular.org. And you can go on this channel. The first thing you'll see pop up, don't click that away, is the AI engine, and you can punch anything in here that you'd like regarding. So this is Linus Pauling up here. This is his picture. And they do stay true to high dose vitamin C. And that, if you want to know how do you begin an orthomolecular repair cycle, straight up, Linus Pauling's legacy, it is beginning with high dose vitamin C. If you're going to be doing high dose vitamin C, you need to patronize magnesium, right? And take magnesium whenever you're taking vitamin C. I wouldn't particularly give a ratio because magnesium is wiped out with just supplements, pharmaceuticals, like I said, medicines, supplements, all sorts of things. Stress, sugar intake can just wipe out your magnesium intake. So you're better off doing this on some sort of what I call standalone diet, where you're respecting a specific dietary measure, right? Which is what I've found across the board, is whether or not you're in gluconeogenesis and staying just on protein, or you're just exclusively going into glycolysis and you're eating almost nothing but carbohydrates, right? Which you can find a lot of research on. They're calling it the sugar diet, but that's been around forever, right? And it really kind of gets into a more hybrid version, which was the early 90s, which is a low fat diet, right? So you're keeping your fat level very low. You're obviously eating a lot of carbohydrates, but you're keeping moderate protein. Well, if you've got some extra fat on, you just cut the protein out and you'll see the fat just shrink off of you. And this just proves the efficacy of the standalone diet. Now you can do the same thing with fat. You can go into ketosis. You can do fat as a standalone, meaning you're doing less than 10% protein and 10% glucose or glycolysis, and you'll keep your ketone bodies up. So it doesn't matter what you do. There isn't some doctrine, but it does curtail and specify whether or not you're going to have more fat solubles. So if you're going into ketosis, right, you still continue on with your orthomolecular detail, high dose vitamin C, high magnesium intake, right? But you are focusing in on fat soluble vitamins. Does that make sense? If you're going into glycolysis and you're doing high vitamin C, high magnesium, you're focusing in on your vitamin B's, your C, you follow. So that's very much following a seasonal specific type of a dietary protocol. So people who think that seasonal or indigenous type eating is ridiculous, they just haven't done their study. Look into heal with the seasons, nutrition. Look into those publications. Heal with amino acids and nutrients by Billy J. Saley, right? Look into Linus Pauling's work. You'll find it. You'll find the answers there. And then finally, if you're focusing more on proteins, that's when you get into the real orthomolecular science and nutrition, where you're allowing amino acids to compete with one another, and you're focusing specifically on the modality of focusing on anabolic type of amino acids, aromatic amino acids, and non-anabolic mediated amino acids, cortical steroid induced amino acid. When you talk about steroidogenesis and the absence or the suppression of androstenedione, which sets off all the anabolic recruitment of these amino acids. So when you're anabolically taking in amino acids, but you're on nothing but orthomolecular science and nutrition, that is, you're going in deep into gluconeogenesis and you're spiking up your cortisol levels, you might want to focus on getting enough glutamine. If you're not, if you're not going through a big C cancer scare, focusing on alanine, focusing in on glycine, focusing in on theanine, the things that you'll need to produce the glucose in order to produce the ATP production, right? So in the morning, right when you wake up, right when you're exposed to first sunlight, that's where you do the excitatory neurotransmitters like phenylalanine, also tyrosine and tryptophan, and to some extent histidine, right? Raising up histamine levels, getting into a reactive state, going into an excitatory neurotransmitter state, shutting off the melatonin levels, spiking up the cortisol. That's what the exchange results in by exposing yourself to early morning sunlight, the perfect balance between ultraviolet and infrared. And thereby, that's where you would be up early in the morning, exposing yourself to early sunlight and trying to take in a myriad of these aromatic amino acids, or just focusing on phenylalanine to spike it up. Then in the afternoon, you sort of migrate toward tyrosine, and then in the evening, to produce the dopamine, and then in the evening, you graduate or gravitate toward tryptophan, right? That'll induce sleep. And then you can go through a modality where you're slipping more into cortical steroid healing practices that might involve more vitamin C, whereas you're focusing on cysteine, glycine, proline, right? We're talking about collagen production, all the things that are going to sort of build you up and aid in your sleep to go through tissue repair. In the early afternoon, you might want to go anabolic during your sleeping times, where you're taking in more branched chain amino acids, ornithine, and so forth, carotene, right? So does this make sense? Amino acids compete with one another. So if you're following the book, Heal with Amino Acids and Nutrients by Billy J. Saley, and if you look her up, she doesn't exist there. She didn't make a lot of good friends, right? But, and her books are actually hard to find. So her books are expensive. I used to hand this exact book, this blue book, that's 16, 10 bucks, 9 bucks, right? This is the old school version of the book, but I used to hand this out. I used to buy this for like $2-3, right? But I just recently saw the price come down, so that's amazing. It was like $55. Highly recommend this book. Another book that I highly recommend is the book on stretch, the old school book on stretch. By Davis, right? Davis, right there. And this is it right here. This is the old school book on stretch, the 40th anniversary. I've also handed this book out many, many times. And look at how cheap this one is. Let's take a look. See if it's out of publication, because they always come out with a new one. You could probably find a cheaper one. Yeah, here on Kindle, you got it for 12 bucks. Extremely important. Here's a sample. I even remember on page 204 of this publication, or somewhere around there, you're going to have self PNF stretching. So I'll be trying to purchase this, and this is group stretching, assisted stretching, PNF stretching. This is how you stretch the adductor. So they are literally doing a self PNF technique right here, right in front of us, right there. So they're applying pressure, right? And then they take a big breath in, and then they go deeper into their stretch while they exhale. It's that simple. You're syncing your breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, in with the proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation stretch, right? So that's a beautiful one. Staying Healthy with the Seasons, I misquoted. This is also a really amazing book by Elson Haas. And then there's an accompanied one. Staying Healthy with Nutrition is the first one. I got a certification in that years ago. But this is written in a way where it's written in text format. It's also written as a more casual read. This is Elson Haas, right? I think he's up on X, right? But he's written these publications years ago, and they're just amazing. And they really are about seasonal cooking, like what I just laid out. Like, it only makes sense that you're going to eat certain foods at certain times around the year with certain availabilities, and this really dictates our health and how we migrate towards certain nutritional foods that are based on these other publications, right? And how we stretch more at certain times of the year, how we'll work on bulking ourselves up a little more, right? I mean, there's creatine in beer. I've heard debates on that, whether or not it's usable creatine. But I mean, just go look at a big beer drinker. These games, right? Scottish games that involve strongman competitions. Tell me that doesn't go part and parcel with ale and beer and, right, merriment and lifting stones. I mean, this is all part of it. So that's a big part of it. The seasonal aspect to it, the bond with anthropological, natural, ontological constants. This is all part of it, right? So I linked up a couple other books that go along with this. Complex PTSD. Billy J. Saley was on the President's Council for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, right? So PTSD, right? Which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And then Billy J. Saley, right? And you'll see it. She was one of the original people that named post-traumatic stress disorder. She also did a lot of research along with Candace Pert, another female scientist who uncovered gamma immunobutyric acid, GABA, right? So you can produce your own GABA as long as you've got magnesium, like paradoxin B6, B12, vitamin C, and glutamine. Your body can produce its own GABA, right? And there's even arguments to say, well, maybe the amount of GABA that you'd need or SAMI even, right, in order to kick off, right, this type of amino acid therapy, orthomolecular therapy, could very much lie or rely on what type of amino acids we're shifting toward, and whether or not we are in a more cortical-based steroidogenesis phase, right, where we're actually phasing over. And so you start to see the human body through this sort of resonant field, right? morphic resonance as a geometrical construct or structure that can be played almost like a musical instrument, where you're transitioning from one competitive amino acid trope to another, right? So I digress. Let's go into this. This was Billy J. Saley. Let's go back over there and see if I spelled it incorrectly, and that if that would be the reason why her name didn't pop up. Because if she's not named there, I'd be very disappointed. Look at that. Yeah, she was obviously left out and discredited. I don't know what kind of politics were going on there, but I mean, it reminds me. I mean, why even have Linus Pauling's name face up here if you're going to be discrediting? But you know, I have issues with that, of course. That was my introduction to orthomolecular nutrition and why I had so much success as a lifestyle coach and training clients in this regard. Right. So I just wanted to mention a few of those books, highlight the importance that seems to be a critical area or a critical breakoff where it's like, how does this tie in with what I'm talking about over here? Like how does this orthomolecular nutritional science, amino acids, aromatic amino acids, right? And we're going to look that up too since we're here. We're going to be looking up Jack Kruse, Dr. Jack Kruse. And we'll even do diligence and we'll look up some Penrose. But these are his, I think these are his supplements. And here he is. He's a very opinionated guy, but here he is, the blue light methylation connection, right? So he talks about, and here I am, aromatic amino acids, consciousness, WEF, and more. Yeah, we're going over this. We're going over this, right? So I put that up about a month ago. Obviously, I'm trying to advocate for this. So we have aromatic amino acids. I don't even have to look at that list. And I understand the transitionary aspects of it and how to mediate these. And some of the cheapest source of getting phenylalanine and really going into that excitatory neurotransmitter switch to this specific aromatic amino acid is, I hate to say it, but Diet Coke. Diet Coke will put you on cloud 9, and then you want to be able to take in tyrosine and tryptophan. So let's look up a couple of good. I wanted to get a good picture of Jack Kruse just so you can see his face. That's not even. He looks more like this. He's always got the glasses on. He's never posturing himself without the glasses because he is living it. He's blocking out certain rays that are, you know, and here he shows the pathway, right, of the aromatic amino acid, the metabolism, right? Med nerd. That's not him, but that's someone else. So I highly recommend looking this up. And then how that might correlate back in with the sugar diet, right? What we were talking about before, right? So we're going to get into Penrose and hammer off consciousness. And this directly affiliates back to aromatic amino acids. Like they're talking about consciousness taking place at the microtubule level. Aromatic. And they go as far as to even tie in from a celestial sense the pervading solar system around us and how these hexamer rings, right, best correlate directly to planetary alignment. And you could even get you could even get into the obliteration of planet Meldek, right, and the postulation of this where the asteroid belt lies, why the moon was put where it is, and how a control mechanism or a control grid was set around us, either purposefully by intent or total machination, or by way of something that happened critically where they kind of stumbled upon a control grid, and that we're being, the cap on information is being suppressed intentionally for our own good. If you believe that, har, right? But here's Penrose. You can see all these different resources. to where Penrose and Hammeroff are laying out, and it doesn't specifically get into this, but it gets directly into it gets directly into consciousness, and there's a discourse and study surrounding aromatic amino acids. So really look into that. And I don't want to be too long on this, so I'm going to end it right here. But I wanted to point out some critical factors there. Just so if you're not digging in when I do my live streams and I'm doing my walks and I'm doing my training, if you're not indulging yourself and digging into this information yourself, well, that's where you find it. And that is the vetting and the accreditation where you will find the best research, and then go in and due diligence.